Hello and welcome to the Public Affairs program here at Catamount Radio. Every Sunday for an hour, we spend time with folks from the community. We call it Catamount Community Connection. I'm Brian Collamore, your host for the show. And as is true every week, we speak with community leaders from the business, professional, nonprofit, and political arenas. The goal of the program to inform and make our listeners aware of things that are going on in Rutland County, but also throughout the state, things that will affect everyone listening in some cases. And our show is brought to you by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, which has brought you the Vermont State Fair at Rutland since 1846. Great turnout this past August for the 178th Fair, and we're already looking forward to 179th Fair coming up in August of 2025. Today, we are going to speak with Henry Heck, who is on the Board of Aldermen at the moment and also is running for mayor of the city of Rutland. Henry, welcome into the show, and it's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's great to be here. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So normally when I have someone on for the first time, we give that person a couple of minutes to talk about themselves. Many people, of course, in the area already know you or know of you, but it might be helpful if you gave folks a little bit of a heads up. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? All that kind of stuff, and the other jobs you've had in the area. So we'll just turn our attention to you for a couple of minutes.
Sure, and I appreciate that. You know, as you stated, I was born and raised here. Been here almost 63 years. And it's interesting because my family has been very deeply rooted within this community. My Uncle George actually was part owner of WSYB back in the day. Radio has been a part of my family forever. My Uncle Punky, Howard Cameron, my cousin Mike, still within the business. The Grady family, my mom's sister, was, entrenched within the football community back in the day when Rutland and MSJ were huge rivalries, and the high schools, participated in the annual Rutland MSJ game. My uncle coached many years. My cousin Brian was the head coach for a while. So, as I stated, born and raised here, been here for a long time. My family's been, very rooted within the community. Love this community. Rutland's always been my home. Will continue to be my home and stuff. And it's been a great place to raise a family for sure.
So where'd you go to school, and sort of like what other kinds of jobs have you had?
Yep. So if I may be politically correct or incorrect, I was a Rutland Red Raider back in the day. Proud, Rutland Red Raider as far as that goes. That's where I went to school. Also attended, at that point in time, Castleton State College.
Yep.
Got a couple degrees there at Castleton State College. And then, started my so-called career in what it was, the hospitality industry. I have a great love for people. I've always loved, helping folks and serving, my community and stuff. I did a stint for the Sirloin Saloon, which was, a icon here in restaurants. A lot of people still talk about those days and, what that business meant to the community. 10 years at Applebee's, almost up there, working through their management program. Worked with a unbelievable young lady by the name of Kelly Wygand. She and I were there forever. Kelly's still there, 26 plus years, and their business has been phenomenal up there. So Applebee's was a place that I had been at. Had a couple entrepreneurial things in between. City clerk, 14 and a half years, and now I'm been at Key Honda for a little over a year. My love for, again, people and cars is kind of a natural progression for me. Those folks down there have been absolutely tremendous, allowing a little bit of an older guy to come in and learn the ropes and stuff. And it's been a great venture, and it's a lot of work, it's a lot of hours, but it can be a lot of fun as well.
What do you do at Key Honda?
I was just promoted back in July to sales manager, desk manager. So basically, I'm one of those guys that help, help the sales folks, get numbers for their vehicles, do appraisals, work with the clients, work with the customers, see what we can do to get them into a new Honda and stuff.
And obviously you've entered the political arena as well. So tell us a little bit about that. You're on the board. How long? What committees? All that kind of stuff.
Yep. So it's, 3 years prior to becoming city clerk, I had an opportunity to serve as an alderman and get my feet wet, so-called, in regards to the political atmosphere. And, if I may, I'm not a politician. Never plan on being a politician. I've served the public, whether it was in a hospitality capacity or in a municipal capacity, as city clerk. So, my office within that we were very neutral, almost Switzerland-like. So I don't look at a political stance. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a progressive. I'm kind of, I don't want to be corny and say I'm a guy for the people. I want to do what's best for the people. I've always listened, and I've always tried to inform the public. And when I ran again in March, I'll be honest with you, it was because I was already processing a run for mayor. Wanted to see how the people would respond to me. Excuse me. I didn't know, as city clerk, how it would be. Unfortunately, when you're an appointed official and you're not reappointed, that's just exactly what you are. You're not reappointed. Wasn't terminated, wasn't fired. I just was not reappointed. And the perception out there, could have been, why is he doing this? What's going on? Is there a beef? Is there this and that? And there truly wasn't. I understood those dynamics. I was truly blessed to have an opportunity to be clerk for 14 years, learned a boatload. And I just wanted to give back to my community. So I wanted to see how the voters would react. Seemed to be very positive. People were glad that I was running. People approached me and asked, please be a voice. There was some, I don't know what I want to say, discontent with the administration, how maybe information was being deciphered. They're just thinking things might have been moving too fast. So it was a way to, test the waters.
Okay.
And that was my real intent. I said to my wife, listen, if I can't get on the board, there's no sense in running for mayor. If the voters aren't going to allow you to do that, then they speak very loud and clear. And there is absolutely one thing, Brian, that I learned as city clerk. You will know when the voters have made a decision. There is no two ways about that. If you do your job, they will support you. But if they get tired of, something that's going on, they will let you know. And by letting you know is you just won't get voted, and they'll appreciate your service, and off you'll go, and the next guy or gal will come in and do those things. So that was really the main focus for me. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't been able to be as dedicated as I have, which has hurt me internally because I want to be at all the committee meetings and participate. But, my job is almost a 12-hour a day job. I go to work sometimes at 8 in the morning. I don't get out until 7 o'clock at night. Doing that, 5 days a week, sometimes 6 when I was in sales. Committee meetings are at 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock. So I've not missed a board meeting, a regular Monday night as far as that goes, but working through some of those other things. And I stay as up to date as I can, with talking with other folks that are on the board or within my committees. And, on my day off on Tuesday, when I'm catching up, I spend quite a bit of time at City Hall. I still have very close contacts with all the people down there, from the treasurer, assessor, DPW commissioners, recreation superintendent. I still offer my so-called services if there's anything that I can do or help, with things they have going on, but trying to keep my finger on the pulse of the city and see what's happening and how people are feeling about those items out there.
For those of you just joining us, we're talking with Henry Heck, who is currently a member of the Rutland City Board of Aldermen and has announced that he's going to run for mayor town meeting day, which is coming up in March. What committees are you on right now, Henry?
So basically right now, I'm doing some public safety and I think general committee as far as that goes. So, it's budget season, and we are, we are working towards going through those various categories or committees, getting ready to kind of see if there's any movement that can be made for the budget. Mike stated that he has kind of a little bit of a inflated budget to allow the aldermen to work through those processes of maybe they want to keep some stuff, maybe they want to, delete some items as far as that goes. But, November going into December is usually that busy season as far as that goes.
Yeah, to be fair, again, we've had Mike Dunches on a couple of weeks ago. He announced as well, in fact, it was kind of weird, the, I think, excellent coverage on PEG TV by Tom Donahue about the election. So the 3 Rutland County senators, the incumbents, were in the audience or sitting there on the set, but away from the camera. And Mayor Dunches was up with Tom. And that's when he announced, I guess, formally that he was going to run again for mayor. So he's already announced, and we've had him on this show. So again, just to, in fairness, I wanted to make sure that you got an opportunity, as well, to come on with us. And so I'm kind of wondering, and I guess I did understand when he presented the budget to the board, you folks can cut stuff, but you cannot add to it. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, that's always been the history within regards. The mayor prepares his budget and looks at it. Mike has taken an approach that I won't say is right or wrong. It's Mike's approach. I know that under prior administrations, whether it was Chris Loris or David Allaire, they always put forth what they felt was a budget that was necessary to run the city as best as they can, while also keeping in mind the taxpayer and what was happening out there, whether it was nationally, locally, within the state environment, or within our own community, city, as far as that goes. So, there's always infrastructure issues that are going on, out there. The state, will start to mandate some sewer separation projects, and, those things come to play. So a lot of times people don't understand the dynamics of, what is happening because stuff's underground. And in DPW, for instance, when the roads and sidewalks are in good shape, they're happy. When you hit the lever on the toilet and things go, they're very happy. Those are what they want to see.
Sure.
So they want to see those basis type things. Public safety, unfortunately, throughout the years has become more of an issue. I was just reading an article, I think on Vermont Digger, about Burlington, what's going on with our police force. And, it's very concerning, Brian, that a city the size of Burlington that used to have 100+ officers, I think they're at 71, something in that ballpark. But what is just going on? And it's unfortunate that criminals don't take time off. They look for things that are going on out there. So the state police back in the day used to run on a 24-hour cycle. And then, as their numbers either dwindled or their coverage is spread out, they kind of had a blank period there. I think from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. there was nobody on the roads. So it's a very difficult situation. But public safety has now become the forefront, and mainly the police department as far as that goes. Rutland City Fire Department, phenomenal. Their staffing levels seem to be good. What's happening there seems to be working. Equipment, all those kind of things. Billy Lovett, I've known pretty much my whole life. We went to grade school together. It's been a chief now for a while, and is doing, what they need to do to keep that department running proactively. The police department numbers are really the biggest thing. And I don't discount having less officers with more stuff coming at us, but I'd like to see if there's a way that we can help the PD. If we can't get numbers, then we're going to need to do, something. And there was something that I had brought up back in the day. I think it was Rudy Giuliani, broken windows. Back when New York had a really huge crime problem, and they didn't seem to have the manpower. They were overrun. and they started to look at little things. They just looked at police presence. If you dropped the Kleenex and you got hit with a trash ticket or jaywalking, people would say, well, how's that going to solve crime? I think what happened was that people just began to realize that the police were there. If there's crime going on, and you don't see, a police officer or a police car or flashing light. I remember, the transition within the Rutland PD has been pretty substantial. Let's say the old guard going out because of mandatory retirement coming in. But there were some officers there that, when I was working, I know I would be able to utilize them, whether it was a vehicle for hire permit when we were licensing, cabs or Ubers or those kind of things. And this gentleman was very proactive, making sure everybody was following the guidelines of what they needed to do. And he used to sit out, in front of Walmart quite a bit in his cruiser with the lights on.
Yep.
Just to let people know I'm here. And I think that's a lot of, what is going on, or what we need to do is a presence. And it'd be nice if things were just normal and there was, no criminal activity going on and the guys were just out doing their thing. But it doesn't seem like that's the case.
Yeah, we had Officer Rosario on last week with us, along with Ian Sullivan, and we've had the chief on probably 4 or 5 times. And it's funny that you mentioned that. That was one of the things that Emilio Rosario, a police officer, whose beat, by the way, is the downtown area, mentioned. He said, for those of you that come into the city or live in the city and shop at Walmart, we deliberately put a vehicle there as often as we can and make sure to activate the blue light so that people get a sense of police presence. Sometimes people will assume that means there's something bad going on. It doesn't always necessarily mean that. It's just we're here, that kind of thing. And again, as an unabashed 100% supporter of our local force and law enforcement in general, I think they do a great job. I think the mayor put one more position, I think, this year in the budget. And there are only, I don't want to say a handful of officers below where ideally the department could be. It's not the same situation, and you brought up Burlington, Henry, and they're sometimes you get what you wish for, and you get what you vote for, and they went through a period of time when that phrase defund was in play, and they're paying for it now. And there are many people that I talk to that will not go up on Church Street at night in Burlington because it's just. It's like the Wild West up there right now. So they've got some really hard work to do. Rutland, thankfully, never got in that position down here. I continue to see the lawn signs out on people's driveways and lawns that say, we support the Rutland City Police Department. And that's important. I think those guys and gals need to know that the community does stand in back of them. And it's great, and they do a super job.
Yep. And, I think this community has always supported those folks, fire department as well as the police department. And I understand the numbers and the workload and, the 12-hour shifts or the overtime, trying to continually, keep the public safe, put a presence out there. And I think that's the number one thing. You stated with downtown, whether it was a good or bad thing that those lights are running. It's funny. Dale Earnhardt used to say back in the day when Jeff Gordon was coming up through the ranks, he was talking about him. And Senior said, doesn't matter what they're doing, Jeff, cheering or booing, as long as they're making noise, that's all that matters. At least you're relevant. Yeah. So, it's one of those things. But I think proactively, it just, so for how long people say, well, they're just there with the lights on, it's no big deal, looking at the bad guys or whatever they're doing. But it's still making a statement. We still have to utilize those things. And, there's local groups that are out there, whether people are supportive or not, that have tried to go out and support the police with nighttime type of patrols and radioing in if they're seeing things. Some people, use the V word. Some people think that it's not good. Maybe even the local police department. I really haven't, found out in that capacity, but I have met those folks. I understand what it is they're trying to do. They're They're very involved in their community. They just want what's best for their community. They want to protect their neighbors, their children. They want to make sure people are safe. And I don't think it's any different than if you're at Price Chopper and you see an old lady wheeling out her cart, at night, and you just want to walk her to her car, yep. Make sure she gets in okay, and help her with her groceries and stuff. I mean, holding a door open, those little things that we older folks, look at. That's how we were brought up. Yeah. That's how it was meant to be. If your neighbor was in trouble, you went there and you took care of them. And that was the most amazing thing about this community is, and I'll praise and beat up at the same time, proactive versus reactive. I've seen a lot of reactive things over some very bad incidents. Teresa King down in the plaza, Carly Farrow on Cleveland Avenue, and those kind of things. But boy, I'll tell you, it was unfortunate. But the things, if those people could understand how they have changed the dynamics of our city, with either a Project Vision type thing or the 1% that was utilized for public safety to get more police cars or to do those things back in the day. In this community, Irene was a huge thing. When everything was washed down, the guys from FEMA came in and they're, working with us. And I remember one day they were in my office and we were just talking. And the guy started to chuckle and he says, you Vermonters, you're the damnedest people I've ever seen. And I said, well, what are you talking about? He says, I was down in New Orleans for Katrina. And he says, they're on the roofs and they're screaming, help us, help us. And he says, which is fine. It was a catastrophic event. We understand. He says, not you folks up here. He says, you're cutting off your rooftops, floating down the river, trying to get to your neighbors to help them out. And I said, that's just who we are. Those are what Vermonters are all about. They're always been welcoming people. I'd like to think a hand up instead of a hand out. And, when we get into some of the dynamics of the politics, how far to the left we had gone or to the right, whichever direction you want to say. And I think on that, for the Vermont election or the national election, we saw a lot of dynamics of how things are, possibly changing. And again, I won't get into the red and the blue. I'll just get into, I think people have had enough, and I think people want to see a change. And I think, that's how you can do it. You can do it at your polling location and voting. Even, my so-called, venture when I announced, a lot of people took by surprise. And I knew it was going to do one of two things. It was either going to be a very, I don't want to say brilliant, but very positive, or it could have been very negative. And it ended up being extremely, extremely positive. Yeah. Because voters, when they've had enough, they will decide. And I'm hopeful that we're going to take a little bit of turn within our own state and, hopefully start to make some strives towards enforcing laws. And maybe, I don't know if Ian Kennedy needs more tools in a toolbox, what the legislature can do, but I know I'm going to reach out to my local senators and, House reps and just say, is there something that we can do now in order to make, these petty crime type things not so petty, at least acknowledge, and, when is enough? When can someone, not walk into Walmart and walk out whatever they want and nobody does anything about it? But we're even seeing changes there. I'm seeing security guards in Price Chopper now. I'm seeing security guards in Walmart. So hopefully on a bigger level, the large companies, the billion-dollar companies are starting to, when it hurts their pocketbooks, they'll start to make a change as well. And I think we need to hold, everyone accountable. And back in the day, in the airport, you couldn't walk in there without, after 9/11, if you see something, say something. If you see something, say something. And I know even here locally, the chief is, saying the same thing. But a lot of times, things, a so-called, let's say a drug house has been identified. Well, we've identified it, and the months go by, and years go by, and still nothing's done. Sometimes people get very frustrated at trying to figure out why that is. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. You and I go back far enough, and I hate to even use names because I'm sure I'll leave somebody out, but Emmett Fleming, Gene Rusille, Charlie Spoon, John Tipker, those are the names of the officers that were here when I first came to Rutland. And the turnover, I think they've done a tremendously good job because we see young, fresh faces wearing the uniform. And for the most part, it seems to be pretty seamless. I mean, I really have a lot of respect for Emilio Rosario. He just seems to be cut from the right cloth, and he does such a great job downtown. And so I'm very hopeful that, people move on in their life. They retire and they're gone. George Packard's another one I'm remembering. You can probably remember some of those names too. And they were the guys that, again, were in charge, kind of the old guard when I first came to town. And I miss them. I really do. But I think we have a really good young force, and they seem to be doing a great job. And you did mention the results of the election. Kind of hard to ignore. I know we have continued debate over whether or not to use the word mandate or landslide on the national level I'm talking about. I don't think there's any doubt Phil Scott won in a landslide here, state level. He had more votes than he's ever had before. 72% of the people that voted for Phil Scott for governor, and that's the highest in the country. So he's easily the most popular governor in the country. And he campaigned vigorously this time for the state Senate seats and the House seats, and it worked. And so we are going to go back in January with a renewed, I think, attitude of positive nature. Still want to work with folks that they're going to still be in the majority, the other folks, but we've become, as I like to say, relevant pretty quickly, and we can sustain vetoes on both chambers. So we're looking forward to that. And we're talking with Henry Heck, by the way. I had an opportunity to have breakfast at the VFW a couple of weeks ago now, and Jack Healy was listening one morning. And he said, you got to keep mentioning who you're talking to, because I was listening the other week, and I had no idea who it was until the end of the show. So it's Henry Heck this week, and we did talk with Ian Sullivan and Officer Rosario last week. And I specifically asked Ian, what can the legislature do in the upcoming biennium to make your job easier and more efficient? And he gave me a few examples of things that he think we can tweak a little bit. And we'll certainly hope that the judiciary committees in both the House and the Senate go to work on that. So hopefully more to come there. We do need to take our first break here on Catamount Community Connection, and we will be back with Henry Heck in just a moment. We are back on Catamount Community Connection, the weekly public affairs program here at Catamount Radio. I'm Brian Collamore. Henry Heck is our guest this week, who is currently a member of the Rutland City Board of Aldermen, but has also announced that he will seek to become Rutland's mayor come town meeting day in March. Our show brought to you by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, which has brought you the Vermont State Fair at Rutland since 1846, and we're looking forward to the 179th fair in August of 2025. So we've been talking a little bit about some of the things that, both Henry and I see in terms of police support, law enforcement support, the results of the election just concluded earlier. This will run on December 1st, so we could say last month's election. And again, kind of the difference, I think, between the Rutland community and certainly Burlington. They've got some issues up there which I find are majorly structural that they've got to work through in order to. If people don't feel safe going into a city to shop or work, they're not going to go into that city. And I think there is a growing fear in some cases of people going there. I don't think that's true in Rutland. I think for the most part we have some pretty common sense folks that live and work and make this a better place. So you've announced that you're running, and maybe you can sort of outline your campaign strategy, if you will, some of the things that you hope to bring attention to as the city residents. And we have a lot of people that are listening from outside the city, so they can't vote for you. But those that are in the city might want to know about as they make their choice in March.
It's interesting, Brian, because as you say, when I made the announcement and stuff, as I stated, the support has been pretty overwhelming, people reaching out. And it's been very moving for me. I'm a pretty kind of behind the scenes kind of guy. I'm a worker bee. It's not like I don't need to be the guy up in the limelight. I'm an older guy. I've worked hard my entire life. My wife and I have both. We're given nothing, and yet we have, at our ages, we have a lot. We're pretty, we're pretty blessed with things, but that's because we've gone out, we've earned them, and we've worked for them. There are folks out there that are going to say, well, he's only running for mayor because he's mad at Mike. Mike took his job. Mike did this. Mike did that. If some people wanted to, they could go back and watch a PEG TV where I came before the board to try and get some information. Wasn't greeted very warmly by members of that board, basically try to, quiet me up. And I looked down at Mike Dunn just sitting right there and said, you may have done me a favor. People don't understand what I personally and other people went through. My first 10 years under Chris Loris, I was able to become a very good clerk. And I think if you were to reach out to any clerks out there, when I was doing that, they would say, Henry Heck's a pretty stand-up guy, works very hard for his community, and is a good clerk. Under David Allaire, David, unfortunately, became very ill. David had very bad cancer. He had the opportunity. He was the only guy during COVID with cancer that would go around and absolutely refuse to put a mask on. I still, to this day, that's who David is, But I had an opportunity as the so-called tenured department head. People would, kind of come to me a little bit, even when Matt Whitcomb respectfully was acting mayor when David was down and stuff. So I was able to develop, those things. My number one priority has always been to the people. It's never about me, has never been about me to this day, and it never will be about me. The charter states that every 2 years when a mayor is elected, they have the ability to appoint anybody that they want. There's, I think, 7 or 9 department heads. And that's the gig that they get to do. Again, as I stated, I was fortunate under 2 administrations to look at that. There was a lot of people that reached out to me days after saying, why would he do that? Why would he do that? You have so much insight and so much knowledge. It's a very interesting question. And it was a question that I brought forth to the board when I asked about that specific position to be an elected position, because there's a lot of clerks/treasurers that are elected. And I think that there's pros and cons to that. Mike did what he did. He had every right to do it. I have absolutely moved on. Mike Dungus as a person, I think he's a good guy. I just don't think he knows exactly what he's doing. And I think there's been ramifications of some of those events or so-called policies that he's making. And a lot of people are voicing their opinion that they don't like what Mike is doing as well. So this is just me being a person that I think I have unfinished business within my community. I still have a lot to offer. I still have a lot to give. And I can definitely state to the people that if I happen to be elected as their next mayor, they will get a guy that will work like no other person. And I've worked for some guys that were pretty hands-on. Chris Loris, about a hands-on dude as you can get. When there was flooding happening downtown, he was a guy out there blowing up the bags to keep the bus terminal from getting flooded before the fire department even could get down there. There's been some people that have, really felt, to put that effort in for their community. This isn't sour grapes. This isn't me just wanting to, say to Mike, prove to Mike. That would be just asinine of me to do so. This is not about me. This is about the amount of people that have contacted me, thanking me for being on the board, thanking me for asking the questions. Some people could say I'm a soup stirrer, I'm a troublemaker. It is what it is. BC, when you're in the political environment, all you're looking for is 51%, and you got it made, okay? I am not going to go out there and make everyone happy. My old position as city clerk, we did what our job was required to do. Didn't matter who you were or what you were. You wanted to vote, we got you a ballot, we counted that vote, we made sure that it was done. I went before the Board of Aldermen 7 times as clerk with appointments. I was nominated by those boards 11-0, 7 times. I never had one alderperson ever vote against me. And there's a reason for that. And people that want to know really who Henry Heck is, I would absolutely ask them to get a hold of me. I'm not difficult to get a hold of. 12 hours a day, I'm at Key Honda. And my bosses know what I'm doing. They're very supportive of me running. And that's all I can, that's all I can say. But there's specific reasons, that, Mike did what he did because that's what Mike needed to do. And that's fine. If I'm elected mayor, what does that mean? Well, I have the opportunity to elect my own people, and to see what's going on. I mean, I think a smart individual would evaluate and see what those people are about there, why they've been there, what they're doing, and what's going on. I just don't jump into things just because. I'm not going to go down there and paint purple polka dots on the side of the building because I like purple polka dots. That's not what happens. And this isn't about me. And the number one thing that I will continue to say from now until Election Day in March is, this isn't about me. This is about my community. This is about people that are looking for a change. I'm going to offer my services to allow them to have a change if that's what they want. And between now and then, whatever they want to learn about me, they can go out and ask. And the one thing that I said, my mom's been passed for a while, but when times always got tough or things weren't going the way they were supposed to go, she would always look at me and say, Henry, you're a man of integrity. Don't ever forget that. And that's something that I've always stuck to. I do what I say what I do, and that's who I am.
And when you did mention your employer earlier, when we were kind of going over your biography, if you will, I did wonder whether that was going to come into play. Should you be successful in March, would you have to give up your job at Key Honda, I guess?
Yeah, I can't work 120 hours a week. And they, again, we're working this on a day-by-day basis. I go in, I do my stuff. But I can't believe the support they've given me. Both of the gentlemen that I work with, my Vice President, Eric Carrington, and Ben Cram, who I've worked with now for a year. I mean, they when I told them, they came out and said, you're going to make a great mayor, Henry. We can't believe, best of luck. And I know that you're going to do a fabulous job. So I can't ask for better support, from my employers and stuff. And that's because I work hard. I do what I need to do. I've proven to them who I am and what I'm about. Whether it's selling cars, it's working as city clerk, it's working at Applebee's. I mean, I'm not looking for admonishment here and having people praise down on me and stuff, but I don't think there's too many people out there. When I put my head down on my pillow and I go to sleep at night, I try to be the best person that I can. Not always going to make them happy, and there's things that are going to come up. But I do the job that I think, I was put here to do. And that's basically to help people and figure out problems. And for me, Brian, this isn't a so-called, if I'm fortunate to become mayor, I'm not looking at this as a 8-10 year type of tenure or anything, because who knows? I'm going to propose, and I don't know if I should say this, but I am going to propose a charter change to allow the voters to decide if they want to continue to have a mayoral government or if they would like to have a city manager. I truly believe that a city manager may be best based upon the requirements and how things have changed dynamically. This is what those folks do. They get their MPAs and, professional, management and how to, build and mold those things. It would give the board more direction, more input about how they really want, things to be. And I think that if the people want it, that's great. And if they don't want it, I completely understand. I have a friend, he's a young guy, but he's an old soul. And he's a true believer in the mayoral, type of management, and thinks that Rutland City is that kind of a government. They want to have a choice. They want to put their guy in there or their gal in there. And that's great. And if that's the case, then that'll be fine. It's just giving people information. I believe that information is knowledge, and knowledge is power. The more information you could have, the better decisions that you can make. And that's what I ran on in January, was to make sure that the people were informed and understood what was going on. Because I believe there was, I won't say it was intent to keep people, in the dark or not give as much information, but just things the way it was happening. It may not have been as transparent, and I'm not a big user of transparency and all those things because, or data, you hear this word now all the time, data. It's analytics, whether it's sports or it's politics. I mean, people sit down, and I'm a believer in a lot of that stuff. But at the end of the day, I want to sit down in front of someone, look them in the eye, and speak with them. I don't want someone to, have to read about something. If there's crime going on, or if there's a drive-by shooting, I want to be the guy that stands up that next day and says to the people, this is what's going on, this is what we're doing, this is what we need to do proactively, because there are people who are scared. There are people who are, afraid of what's going on in their community. And it dictates, it's unfortunate, but, as human beings, we come in all shapes, sizes, and forms. And, if people are coming in this community, it's hard not to stereotype those individuals if there's things that are going on. I mean, I remember back in my day, we had a couple black families here, and, a school teacher, and they were all part of the community. And it was like, I didn't realize they were black people. They were just my friend, or a kid we played basketball with or played football with. And we all put our pants on one leg at a time. Doesn't matter who you are and what you are. But I think that times have changed. People are looking for answers, and how they're getting those answers may not be, social media is a huge thing, and those kind of things. But I'm old school. Not that I don't use Facebook or do any of those things, but I walk door to door. I walked up and down Woodstock Avenue talking to people just recently about the digest change, just checking in with business owners just because of who it was, not because I'm running for mayor. This was back in the summertime, so it wasn't, wasn't in that field of things, but just what's happening, How is it working? How is it not working? What would you like to see? What would you like to do? Gathering information, and trying to use that to make better decisions or to see about if things can be changed.
One of the things that obviously has come up a lot in our discussions with Mike Dunches and some of the other community leaders is the whole thing about housing. Some of the issues that affect communities can be dealt with on a local basis. I think certainly we have a local role to play with regard to housing and public safety. Not sure locally that there can be much done about the property tax situation. That seems to be more on a state level where the legislature, gets involved in terms of what we're going to have for property tax to send back down the street, so to speak. But I know the housing thing has been a big issue, and it doesn't matter who you are or who you talk to. It's going to be a problem for a long time here. We've got to figure out a way to allow people that want to move here to work, find a place to live. And that's been a big issue that we've talked about that a lot with Mike and some of the other folks, Devin Neary, who was been a guest on the show as well. So I don't know if you have any other issues that you feel the city is facing as we look toward the election in March or not. But I got to believe that's one of them, is public safety, housing, that kind of thing, which can be locally driven for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I'm not gonna solve world hunger, create world peace, do any of those things. I'm not going to be a politician and promise. It takes X to run a city. I've worked. One of my old bosses came out and said to the board, because back then the board wasn't as supportive, let's say, of the local mayors. It was more of a anti-board, mayor type stuff. So, and there's, the board was like, unsustainable. Well, cut it. Well, what are we going to do? He says, listen, it's a $20 million budget. If you want me to run this city on $5 million, I will run this city on $5 million. You ain't going to like it, but I will do it. Mm-hmm. So those are the attitudes, what is it that the people want? So you need to listen, and you need to, proactively keep costs down, take on projects that need to be done. So housing, Mike's got a 1,000-unit, program out there. And that's the one thing about Mike. For me, personally, when I talk about this, always has to be grandiose, has to be big, always has to be big. Why can't we start with a unit or 2 units or 10 units? And I think if we really, look at it, not to beat up on people, but there's housing agencies that utilize federal dollars to build complexes. There's one that's going to be going up on Columbia Avenue.
Right.
I think it's got a $6 million price tag. These units are now costing, I was saying to a friend of mine that works at the IRA, $450,000. She's like, Henry, it's $600,000 per unit now. $600,000. Yep. Okay. Who's making all the money, Brian, in regards to that? There's no apartment complex where something costs $600,000. There's a local developer who's come in, who's done some projects, and there are developers around here. I know a lot of local developers. I mean, Joe Giancola was a huge, developer. The Giancola family's still here, but it's just not the way it was, when Joe was out doing those things. But the Foleys, have been very proactive, and we're very blessed to have the Foley family here buying up property and developing those properties, or at least updating those properties, utilizing them. So there are open, things. So housing is the number one thing. But a gentleman who did a project up off of North Street Extension, the old Mr. C's, he was able to utilize a complex for about, I think it was between $50,000 and $70,000 a unit. Okay. And Mr. Box has come out and said I don't remember the numbers, but there's between 1,100 and 1,200 available properties waiting to be rehabbed. So me personally would go to a gentleman like Mr. Box and say, share with me your vision, share with me how we're able to do these kind of things. I'm not saying the housing agencies don't have a purpose. But what I have seen in the state of Vermont is we're always willing to take care of the poor, as the Statue of Liberty, the tired, your masses, the tired, the hungry, the poor, which America's always done, and we're always going to continue to do. And I have no problems as I stay with a hand up. But there comes a point in time where the blue-collar worker out there working, trying to just survive, who can't buy a house because it's non-affordable, or an apartment or whatever it may be, they're going to need some help. I know there's a new housing, bill or thing that came out from the state. Mike Penchek has given the city, I think, $8 million to utilize for different things. I think that's absolutely going to be great and, a big help. But I would like to see, I just ran into a friend of mine who was a developer. His family was big into projects around the city. And I asked him, I said, why is it that we can't build like a Stonegate, down off of Door Drive here? He says, it's not affordable anymore, Henry. You can't afford to do those kind of projects and stuff. So, boy, I'll tell you, though, you go to Burlington, you go down Dorset Street, right across from the University Mall. It's a little city there, Brian. You know what I'm saying? It's like developers will develop where they can make money. So I think that's the bigger piece here is, if the city, as Mike likes to say, is for 30,000 and we only have 16,000, I'm not sure, where we're going to get 14,000 more people. Because for me, it would be, a family at a time, a house at a time. But to continually to look out and search and see what is going on, what's happening in different parts of the country. There's a lot of little Rutland Vermonts out there that, we're not the only one who's facing these kind of challenges. So being innovative, creative, and when you're the guy, the mayor, I'm not going to be the smartest guy in the room. That's there's no question about that. The thing that I have, or the ability that I'm presenting myself for, is that I can put different people in a room that maybe nobody else can do. And I can get those people to work together to kind of come to a common resolution about what is it that we're going to need to do and how we're going to do it. It's kind of like you up in the Senate. You're an R. And if you got a D, and I'm sure you have a D friend there somewhere.
Sure.
And you can walk up to them, and that's what it's all about. It's all about, giving and taking. What's going to be best, not for the party. We need to get rid of that party, emphasis, what's going to be good, best for the party. It's what's good for the people. And the people are now looking at taking care of the people. And that's really what it's all about. So there are things out there that we can do. It's just a matter of putting them in place, gathering that information, and starting with one at a time. And then 2, and then 10, and who knows, inside of X amount of time, maybe Rutland will become the modernized Burlington, or, I don't get to travel around their state. You might, as well. I'd like to go to St. Albans and see what their community is like. I've been to Montpelier and to Berry City, and some of those down to Brattleboro, and see what it's like. But we're all the same. It's just a little bit different,
Rutland City Alderman Henry Heck, who's also running for mayor of town meeting day in March. And we need to take our second break, and we will be back here on Catamount Community Connection in just a minute. We are back on Catamount Community Connection, the public affairs program, each and every Sunday here at Catamount Radio. And we're talking with Henry Heck today, who is on the Board of Aldermen currently. And so there will be, I guess, an open board position at some point if you are successful in your run for mayor. And I know it's a staggered situation with the terms there. We don't have to get deeply into it, but there's 11 people on the board. 6 of them, I think, are one term or one election, and then the other 5, the other election. And we talked a little bit about some of the issues that you see coming up. Housing is certainly a big one. Some of that is a state-driven and even a nationally driven issue. I look at 2 things there in terms of inflation. That's what has driven up costs throughout the country. There's no doubt about that. I mean, you go into one of our box stores here and just try to buy a piece of plywood or a 2x4, and it's like triple what it used to be. And then Act 250 is the other piece of it for me. And if we don't continue to make strides in revising our Act 250 law, I think we're always going to put another roadblock, if you will, in front of a developer that wants to do the right thing. So we have about 6 minutes left. And again, I don't know whether you want to get into another topic or you just want to sort of recap why you want to run for office as the mayor. What are the issues that you want to talk about? Any of that, I guess, Henry.
And I appreciate it, Brian. It's been great. Thank you for allowing me to spend an hour with you this morning to go over these things. I hope some of the folks out there will find it interesting. Hope some people will learn a little bit about who I am. Or if they want to learn about who I am, like I say, I'm very accessible, and I'd love to have that conversation. It's been a very positive last couple weeks in regards, as I say, the support has been mounting. Looking forward to getting to March. You noted that the aldermen. It's very interesting because again, who I am as an individual. There are 6 board members that'll be up for election in March. Mm-hmm. Several of those may not run for the board, so there could be some open seats, which a lot of newcomers say, listen, this is name recognition only. I can never get on because of that. I say baloney to that. I say if you really want to be a board member, if you get involved, and I wish more people would get involved, and there are a lot of people, they just don't want to have their face out there. They don't want to be as public. So, but behind the grounds type of stuff. So, for me, I have to look at this in a 2-cents thing. I sit on the board. I was elected in March. So if I'm going to be mayor, then do I give up my seat prior to, which I believe is the right thing to do? I wouldn't, be happy, I guess, if I was elected and I'm replacing myself with, my cousin Ernie down the road that wants to be a board member but would never go out there and do those things. Or do I look at this, well, if I don't win, then I can stay on the board and still serve the people. I don't get into things to lose. And the other aspect of this is as well, too, if I continue the job that I'm doing, I'm doing a disservice to my community. I don't have the time to commit myself. You of all people know what it takes to go out there and to be accessible to the people and to do that. You're a little bit older than I am, more on a retired basis. You still work and stuff, but you have that ability. And I'll tell you what, you're a very hardworking guy. A lot of our Senate and House reps are very hardworking people. Larry Copley, rain, snow, or sunshine, he was always at the ward. I always see him. Sometimes out there, the snow almost made him a 6-foot tall guy and stuff when it was out there stacking up on his head. But, our people, our House reps and Senate folks, they work very hard, and I appreciate that. And I notice it as far as that goes. So it's a decision I'm going to make, here in regards. I may resign my seat, prior to Election Day, so that way there it would give someone an opportunity who might want to try it out as a 1-year seat. Will be up, and then they would fall back into the natural progression as far as that goes. So I think, whether it's volunteering for a board or being on a committee, if you can get involved within your community, I think public service is a tremendous opportunity. May not be as rewarding, and of course there's people out there, no matter what you do, you're not going to make everyone happy, as far as that goes. But that would be the first thing. The other things that the city is being involved in or looking at, they're going to be ongoing stuff. Mike Dunges isn't going to solve all these problems. Henry Heck is not going to solve all these problems. Bob, Tom, Shirley, or Sally are not going to. It's all of us working together, though, to try and do what's best for our community. Keep us a stable tax base. Let's keep it as affordable as we can, to be out there developing things that we need to do, invest in our infrastructure, invest in our people, continually, serve our community. People within the city environment get paid well to do the jobs that they do. There are those opportunities out there. They should feel fortunate because their compensation packages, vacation time, health, all that stuff is big. It's huge. There's no question about it. To take that. Again, as a family guy, born and raised here, our daughter just came back, Bozeman, Montana, Denver. She can't afford to, be out there and do the things she needs to do. I'm experiencing that like a lot of other families are. It seems like the little compound thing's coming back with more families coming together. Not that it's a bad thing. Her son graduated from college, made more money than his mom and dad combined. So he's all set to go.
I know how that feels, trust me.
And then, what, as parents, that's what it's all about.
Sure.
It's all about your kids doing better than we did and stuff. But I'm not here to do anything to promote myself or to make a name for myself. I am truly here to serve my public, serve my community. And whether I'm doing it while I'm selling cars or I'm doing it running the city of Rutland as their mayor, that's my plan. And over the next couple months, I will start my campaign. As far as that goes, I will be as proactive as I can to try and get the message out there and to do what I truly believe is going to be best for our city and our community.
Henry, it's been a pleasure. Henry Heck, Board of Aldermen, running for mayor in March, town meeting day. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and hopefully we'll have you back soon. I appreciate your time. BC, have a great holiday. Enjoy happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there. And, the holidays are upon us. Let's enjoy it with our family. For sure. We will see all of you next Sunday here on Catamount Community Connection.